Well, good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're all keeping safe and well at this time, and it certainly has been a challenging number of months for everybody as we learn to adapt to the new way of working, and obviously lots of changes across various organisations in different shapes and forms, and obviously moving to a new blended model of working for everyone. We're juggling remote work with family life, and certainly over the past 4 weeks with the return to school fun has brought a little bit of normality back to a lot of houses as we get the lunches made and rush everybody out the door again. Normality is beginning to creep back in. The world of recruitment has certainly had its challenges too, and from ourselves and Collins McNicholas, we've seen a shift from permanent recruitment needs for a lot of our clients to embracing more of the flexibility afforded by temporary and contracting personnel. And this is something that we've seen a lot of organisations reach out to look at the availability of temporary and contracting personnel for ramping up and for specific projects. And certainly this is an area that we feel will grow over the next number of months and into 2021. A little bit about our event this afternoon, and delighted that you're joining us. We have a wonderful panel of speakers with us today, and also just want to thank Engineers Ireland for collaborating with us for this particular event. We also have panelists. The panelists are representing ESB, Abbvie and Edwards Vacuum. Before I say a little bit about our panelists, I just want to say a few words regarding Engineers Ireland. As I said, we've collaborated with Engineers Ireland, and they are the professional body for engineers and all things engineering in Ireland. Their strategy ensures the upkeep and advancement of the reputation of the profession. And again, obviously aiding continued professional development, which is key in any sector. They currently have over 25,000 members across all disciplines of engineering, and range from engineering students to graduates, and obviously those advancing their careers, senior leaders and fellows of the profession. I know they have forged fantastic relationships with a lot of organisations across Ireland, and obviously then with the universities and institutes of technology here in Ireland. So it's been really wonderful working with Sinead Quinn, with DQ and Michelle Hochter and the team there in Engineers Ireland on the run up to this event today. So back to our panellists. They're waiting patiently in the wings. Delighted to be joined by our three panelists today. And again, you know, the title of this event is Optimising D&I Strategies to Attract and Retain Female Engineers, obviously in a post-COVID situation as well. And I know the three organisations our panellists are from are on different journeys in that space, and it's wonderful to be able to share their particular stories and their journeys with you today, and hopefully you'll be able to take away some thoughts and ideas around what might work in your organisation. So I'm going to introduce our three panellists. McNicholas Henshin, representing ESB, and McNicholas is a senior manager with the ESB. In her current role as Networks Programme Owner, she is responsible for coordinating the development, allocation and prioritisation of all network assets work requirements. McNicholas herself is a chartered engineer and a fellow of Engineers Ireland, and has worked with ESB since her graduation from UCD as a mechanical engineer in 1990. With a varied career in engineering, line management, project management, safety, change management and HR. So McNicholas, you've covered all different disciplines there. I know that you have a huge passion for mentoring and coaching, and you're very, very passionate about helping people to fulfill their full potential, which is obviously a great offer to people to help them with that journey. McNicholas is president of the UCD Engineers Graduate Association, and she is chair of Engineers Ireland Diversity Committee and other committees outside of that. And she truly aims to support people of all ages in becoming their best selves, and really like that idea for sure. Amir Mccarthy, delighted to have Amir representing Abbvie, and Amir is Director of Process Strategy and Design at Abbvie, which involves delivery of best-in-class process safety across the Abbvie global network of sites, and I know Amir will talk a little bit about that. Amir is also currently the Irish chair of Abbvie's Women Leaders in Action group, and I know this group has a vision to be a powerful catalyst to enable and empower women to reach their full potential. I'm sure we'll hear a little bit about that from Emer. Emer herself is a process and chemical engineering graduate from UCC and has worked across many fields, including process engineering, new product introduction and senior operations leadership. So Emer is certainly talking very much from an engineering perspective herself today, as well as Mcnicholas. And last, but by no means least, we'll be joined by Michael Reeve, and Michael is representing Edwards Vacuum. And just before I introduce Michael, just to congratulate Edwards Vacuum on their announcement last week, where they announced the establishing of a new service technology centre in Blanchardstown to support the semiconductor manufacturing industry in Ireland and creating up to 120 new jobs across technology, engineering and support. So always welcome news, and congratulations to the team in Edwards Vacuum. Michael himself is currently the GM of EMEA Semiconductor for Edwards and has been in the semiconductor business for over 30 years. An experienced leader of change, acquisition, integration, restructuring of customer service and supply chain re-engineering. I know he currently leads a team of about 220 people and is enjoying being back in Europe after spending some time in Korea, where Edwards Vacuum had acquired CSK back in August 16. So I know Michael was very much involved in the integration of that particular acquisition. Michael is a member of the Semi-Europe Advisory Board and an active member of the Semi-Workforce Development Programme. And Michael himself has an engineering degree from the University of Bath, and I know he'll tell you a little bit more about himself during his slides. So as I said, a wonderful lineup of panellists. We've asked our speakers to present a number of slides for about 7 minutes, so I'm going to have to be a tough taskmaster and keep an eye on the time before we open it up to a Q&A session. And we've asked people, the panelists, to focus on a little bit about themselves, but also their journey within the organisations, focusing on D&I and the recruitment and retention of female employees. Just on the housekeeping, you will be automatically muted. And what I would ask, if you could please pose any questions through the Q&A function, and I will then field the questions to our panellists once they've delivered their presentations at the Q&A section. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Mcnicholas Hinshin from ESB. Each panelist will present their slides and then we'll go to the Q&A session afterwards. So over to you, Mcnicholas.
Hi everyone. So look, we might move on to my first slide. Okay, as an engineer, I use models to explain everything, and as an occasional HR professional, I find this particular learning model that I've got up here is really useful to explain the journey that we've been on. So I myself started at unconscious incompetence when 35 years ago, I put engineering at the top of my CAO application. Not because I'm from a family of engineers, even though I am, and not because of the brilliant careers advice I got. Engineering wasn't even mentioned. I did it because by a process of elimination, engineering was all that was left. So I'd say I continued in unconscious incompetence through 4 years of college, where I was a member of the third sex, female engineers, and then through my first 5 or 6 years in ESB, where, to be honest, I kept expecting to be found out because I didn't really think I was a real engineer, despite brilliant academic and work performance. So why? Well, look, back then, no one believed that girls should be engineers or that there was any need for female representation in the profession to actually serve our customers' needs. No one knew that we actually needed a broad and diverse group of people to solve problems of the future and maybe even prevent them from happening. And then I didn't actually think I was good enough. So I didn't actually notice when I wasn't getting the jobs I wanted that it was because I was a woman. Until one day when I looked at it on paper, I was the best candidate and I still didn't get the job. So I went and I asked HR why. And I found out that for the previous 2 or 3 years, the woman on the panel had actually been protecting me from myself. She really couldn't see me in the jobs that I was trying to go for, and she thought I was unwise to be going for them. So at this stage, we're in the late 90s, and my organisation, ESB, and society in general, we had begun to move into what I call conscious incompetence. So I mentioned the woman on the panel. That's because ESB had a policy that if a woman was being interviewed, there should be at least one woman on the panel. But we didn't realise about unconscious bias. So the woman brought the exact same unconscious bias to the table as the two men. She was as unlikely to pick the delicate little female who had come in her high heels and makeup and skirt and looked about 10 years younger than she actually was, over the 5 strapping lads who looked like they could take on those craft and general workers and make them do what needed to be done. But also they failed to notice that she was the most junior member of the panel, and she was the only one who didn't have to live with the decision afterwards. So did she really have a voice? Look, that was one of the policies we had back then. We had other policies. We had an equality officer, and their job was to run things like assertiveness training for female professionals and other programs that helped women to get ahead. But they were all about equality, about helping women to project an image as strong and capable as the equivalent male, and without tipping over into that whole she-devil bitch kind of area. So they weren't really about diversity and inclusion, not quite there yet, but we really were trying. And we weren't just trying, like we were having to battle the risk of being considered to have given the women an unfair advantage, as if. And therefore the women who got promoted faced the risk that people would think they only got there because it was politically correct to be there, not on their own merits. And therefore many of us who were looking to progress didn't want to address the subject at all. So there was a lot of that negativity going on. But I think the big thing was that around this time, people became aware of 3 things. One, there was a really big case for diversity. It's a business case. And it wasn't just about women being allowed to do men's role. It was about women coming in to do men's role in a woman's way, so that it wasn't going to be all the same. There was also a recognition that it was maybe just possible that we were discriminating against women. But actually there were so few women engineers that they couldn't really be clear whether they were or weren't. And the third big thing that they'd realised was that they really needed to attract more women to the profession. More women engineers were needed. And actually they seemed to think that that was going to solve everything. Okay, but look, we kept working on it, and we gradually moved to where I think we are now, which is in this green box, the conscious competence area. Okay, so now what's different? We recognise that most of our behaviours are rooted in stereotypes that we come across from the cradle. And so what we have now are quite a lot of initiatives about addressing the unconscious bias. So in ESB, this includes training in unconscious bias for people who are shortlisting and interviewing. We've also run a number of women in engineering programs for transition year girls to try and open their eyes to the fact that engineering is potentially a profession for them as well. And we've also modified our selection processes, particularly for graduates, but we've also done this for senior managers recently, where instead of selecting for a particular role, which would traditionally have this image of a man associated with it, we've been selecting for general competence. Are you at the level of a senior manager? And then you look at what's the appropriate role to put the person into. And in Engineers Ireland, that consciousness has been demonstrated in other ways. So we've much more work in the STEPS programme to go to girls' schools and involve girls in STEPS. We've had a conscious use of females in our imagery and on our website and in our ads. And we've set up a diversity committee, which has both male and female members. And that's very important because diversity isn't just a women's issue. So look, we've also expanded the definition of diversity beyond gender, but building on what we already had rather than starting out again. And I think the biggest thing is we've moved that emphasis from equality, helping the different to get ahead by helping them fit in, to changing the world to focus on the desirability of inclusion of the different, the diverse. Okay, so that's the 3 bits of the model that we're already through. I'm going to move on to my next slide because in ESB, what we've been doing just recently, for the last 18 months, we've been doing a deep dive diagnostic of over 25 years of working in this area. which has culminated in a holistic inclusion and diversity strategy building on the good done so far, keeping diversity on our radar and plotting out that roadmap to get from where we are to unconscious competence. So what we're focusing on right now is creating a consciously inclusive workplace where our various initiatives keep diversity on the radar and give us the tools to overcome our unconscious biases. And as a result of that, we're relaunching our internal website of supports, which I'll flick up now. It's a site where managers and staff can go to learn about what's out there to help with inclusion and diversity. And the big thing is that we've now moved to inclusion and diversity, because it's all about inclusion. Diversity is what we're trying to include. And that's a long way past that old concept of equality. If I move to the next slide, in Engineers Ireland, while we've been involved with attracting schoolgirls to consider engineering for a long time, since about 2015, we've been running a number of sort of one-off events very focused on that area. And in the last year, the Council of Engineers Ireland were lobbied and agreed to the setting up of the diversity group, which I now chair. And in our initial year, we focused on gender balance because only 12.5% of our members are women, and therefore it is the big diversity issue for us. We've looked at a variety of areas, but what we're really focusing on is that area of retaining and supporting existing female engineers. We think as a professional body, that's where we can work best. So we expect to launch a Women in Engineering network before the end of the year, and that'll move into the mentoring of female engineering students and recent graduates. Our diversity page is going to go live hopefully shortly, and then next year we expect to expand beyond the gender diversity area. So look, we in Engineers Ireland and ESB, we may be ahead of some and behind others on the journey, but if I move on to the last slide, I'm really sort of, what I'm focusing on here is that road to unconscious competence. I actually think that we're almost all either just getting to, at, or just over the top of the mountain that we've been climbing for the whole of my professional career. And the great thing of being in that point is that for the first time, you can truly see where it is you're trying to get to, and you can see the route to get there. And probably more importantly than anything else, we no longer have over half of the world trying to hold us back. We have a huge group of people working with us, cheering us on, and actually some going ahead and clearing some of the roadblocks that are in our way. And that's what's going to help us to move ahead. Look, there's a long, long road still to travel, okay? We need to stay awake, stay vigilant in case we lose our way. But I truly believe that we are now on our way to that goal of unconscious competence. And that's where we won't need to talk about inclusion and diversity anymore, because it'll just be intrinsic. It'll be the way we go. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you, McNicholas. Great overview of what you're doing currently in ESB, and I love the whole idea of holistic and inclusion strategy, that journey that you're on. So thank you for sharing that with us. I'm going to move over to Amir Mccarthy from Abbvie. So Amir, I'll let you take the reins there on the slides.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. And I have to say, I'm definitely one of the benefits of McNicholas' work for the last number of years. So I think it's fantastic to hear that. So just move on to the next slide. So my name is Amir Mccarthy. I'm the Director for Process Safety and Design for Abbvie. Just talking a little bit about Abbvie, we're a biopharmaceutical company. Our mission and our focus is bringing medicines to patients and transforming lives. We operate across a large number of therapeutic areas. I suppose some of the best known, including immunology, virology, oncology, and eye care, but many more. Focusing in a little bit in Ireland, Abbvie has a large footprint across Ireland. We have 6 manufacturing sites across the whole of Ireland, but I suppose we do have a hub in the northwest. So we have 2 sites in Sligo and 1 in Westport. I'm lucky enough to live in probably what's the staycation area of choice for 2020, as you can see by the picture on your screen there. But I am, however, a proud graduate of University College Cork and a proud Cork woman. So just to give you a little bit of a flavour of my career on the next slide. So when I saw this PowerPoint slide, I thought it was a great way to show anyone's career, because I think if you start off your career or you're halfway through your career and you think you're going to get from point A to point B in one straight line, you're quickly going to find out maybe there are other avenues. So as I mentioned, I graduated from UCC. I studied chemical and process engineering. I graduated in 2007. I worked as a process engineer for a number of years, straight into a recession, but I guess around pharmaceuticals, I was lucky enough that there was always work available for me. I took a little bit of time out in my mid-20s to do some traveling. And when I came back to Ireland, I really wanted to, I suppose, focus on my career, but also focus on getting experience in operations and to my mind, getting closer to the patient. So I spent some time in Pfizer's complex in Grange Castle before I joined Abbvie in 2012. So since then, I've taken up roles in operations leadership, supervision, technical leadership around NPIs, process engineering. A number of years ago, I was made senior manufacturing manager on one of our sites in Sligo. And this year, I was lucky enough to be appointed as director of process safety and design. So really, it's a fantastic opportunity I have to reimagine our process safety program across all of our sites, all 27 of our sites across the globe, and to build a team to do that, which is what I'm engaged in right now. So I would say that if you move to the next slide, retaining and attracting engineers of all types, particularly female engineers, is something that we're very passionate about in Abbvie. I suppose when I was putting together these slides and I was talking to a few people in terms of putting them together, there was two things that stood out to me specifically. Number one is that you've got to do many programs. There's not just one program that's going to, really drive your performance in this area or really change how you're known or how people feel for you, but you've got to do many things. And you've also got to do them based on the feedback that you're getting. So one thing at Abbvie that's very, very strong is we go out to our employees and we ask them using various mechanisms, be it employee surveys or whatever other one-to-ones or whatever ways, and understand what the challenges they're facing, because I can tell you that they're not the same as even last year, the challenges that people are facing now, and then development of the programs to support that. The second thing I would say is that while a lot of these are HR derived programs, ownership of these and support in these is really required from the business functions as well, because the guys from HR are not, they're not the message givers in a lot of instances. It's people managers or it's team leaders. So understanding the message and having that delivered consistently across the business, I think is something that's of particular importance. From an external standpoint, I would say we have some fantastic external recognition of the work that we've done in the last number of years, both from Great Place to Work, but also we've been awarded the Great Place to Work for Women for a number of years. And that, on top of that, some of our individuals have been awarded some great recognition for their own achievements. Including, some winners in the Early Career Awards, and then recently the Step Ahead Awards. Some of my colleagues were recognised there, which is fantastic. I think our talent acquisition teams do a really, really good job in terms of, using technology and leveraging the insights that LinkedIn gives, as well as, creating gender neutral job specifications and using female imagery, which I think is very important. I would say they're also really, really innovative. I went to an event last year, which was, specifically focused at career returners. So a different type of recruitment event, something that was a little bit more accessible to people maybe who are coming back into the jobs market after being out for a period of time for whatever reason that might be. I suppose internally then, in terms of retaining our female retaining staff or really developing people, I like to think of it more, the number one thing that sticks out to me, and you can probably see that in my career journey, is really the development opportunities that there are within Abbvie. So this organization is not afraid to help people to step outside of their comfort zone and develop themselves. You know, I can also give you a more recent example. A member of the an engineer who worked for me has just started continued his career in Singapore, which I think even during COVID times is something that's really impressive, and you know, seeing those development type opportunities and seeing those career growth is really important. Some of the other elements that we have a significant number of employee resource groups, and those are, you know, globally led initiatives, but then we have specific Ireland chapters, and they really focus on the needs of our employees over various areas. I just put in a few here. There are more than this, but you know, Women Leaders in Action, the resource group that I'm chair of, you know, it's really focused on our women leaders, which is where we have the opportunity in Abbvie. So, you know, providing support and structure and really focusing on the needs of our developing female leaders is the focus of WLA. We also have a ED&I council, and then we have specific areas like New Women's Support, New Mothers Support Group, which has been set up. Mentoring is, you know, I think I've been mentored on a number of occasions and have mentored people, and you mentioned it, Michelle, with in conversation with Magella, and it really is, you know, a way in which, you know, females or young engineers can be supported through their early career and even further on. We have two mentoring programs that I called out specifically here. The Female Mentoring Accelerated Program, which looks again at, you know, the talent pipeline for female leaders and specifically giving them mentoring. Now it's male and female mentors as well, which I think is important to get that balance. And then I suppose one of our, you know, more, I would say, innovative or really nice mentoring programs, which is a reverse mentoring program, which is where some of our more senior leaders are actually mentored by some of our junior engineers or graduates or interns, as the case may be. So I believe one session of that is specifically dedicated to, you know, Snapchat and TikTok, but it really is a way of giving the senior leaders a view into what it's like to be a more junior member of the organization, what challenges they face, and allows us, of course, to create programs to support those. And it goes without saying then, you know, in terms of, look, you know, making sure that people are happy and the benefits that they get within an organization is also, you know, it's fundamentally important at a foundational level, I think. So that's really, you know, what I have in the slides, Michelle, and I'm looking forward to the questions and the discussion afterwards.
Great. Thank you, wonderful example of what can be done across the D&I strategy with Abbvie, and I certainly know from working with yourselves how passionate you are with that particular journey, as I said, and certainly that returners event, that was a really wonderful event late last year, and obviously the branding and as you mentioned about the job specs and the imagery. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a little while, and the huge emphasis on mentoring and your groups internally as well. So thanks for sharing that with us, Amir. I will move on to Michael Reeve from Edwards, as you called Edwards Vacuum. I think, Michael, you're going with the word Edwards at the name. So I'll let you tell us a little bit about the company and your own D&I vision currently. Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle, for the introduction, and thanks, Emma. That's a fantastic example of really leading the way at Abbvie. So for those who are not familiar with the Edwards name, we're a global technology company in the semiconductor sector. Semiconductors, for those who are not familiar, is the manufacture of silicon chips that are used in smartphones and cars and any connected device. And we're also part of a global industrial group, Atlas Copco. So on to the next slide. These are the words that Michelle used in my introduction, and my journey started as an engineer at Bath University, and I've really enjoyed this amazing multinational career, and I spent time in the US, 10 years in the US, about 10 years in Europe, and 10 years doing global roles in and out of Asia. So my real passion is for developing the next generation of engineers. And the semiconductor industry as a whole has a real challenge. Over the next 10 years, we expect the industry to double in size. And there are not enough STEM students coming through universities and colleges to fuel that massive growth in workforce. Therefore, it's absolutely an imperative for us to fish in every pool that we can, and clearly that includes attracting more and more female engineers. So then on to the next slide, just to give a little bit of background on Edwards. We have been a sort of enabler of technology for all of the 100 years since we were founded, starting off in the 20s with in the early days of TV, and then in the 40s and 50s we were a significant part of pharma manufacturing. It's, vacuum is an enabler for in the pharma sector. And then in the 60s when the first integrated circuit was developed, and then moving ahead into the 90s when there was a increasing global awareness of the environmental footprint of industry, and some of our solutions that we've brought to the semiconductor industry are particularly to address that. And then the latest phase here is vacuum is an enabler for the latest generation of chips that are going to facilitate artificial intelligence going forward. Okay, and then a couple of did you knows. Edwards is at the forefront of 90% of the world's flat panels that are produced, mostly in China. And next slide, as I said, we are have a significant contribution to reducing the pollution effect from the semiconductor industry. So let me just talk, looking forward. There are two things I wanted to talk about. One is to illustrate the type of career that is possible in our industry, and also explain where Edwards is on our D&I journey. So the next couple of slides feature two of our senior female executives. I'm going to start with Christine, and her journey began in France as a STEM student, and she always thought that she would move into technology. And as you can see, her education was very broad in industrial technical studies, an MSc in chemistry and a BSc in physics. And then she launched into this, again, multinational career, partly in US, partly in France. And then last year, she was awarded the role of the vice chair of the Diversity and Inclusion Council for the US semi-industry. Now, Christine's passion is taking teams to the next level, and she's an absolute role model in nurturing and developing teams. So I've been working with Christine closely for most of this year, and it's a pleasure to have her leading the way with that capability. Then the next slide is an introduction to Kate Wilson. Kate, as you see, was very ambitious from an early age, saw herself as either Prime Minister or the Chancellor of the Exchequer. She's also I guess a role model in developing a international career, and has followed some similar footsteps that I've taken with roles in UK, US and Korea. And excitingly, Kate has just this week been promoted to president of one of our divisions, which will allow the company to build on that global experience she has. But there's one piece that she asked me to mention, which is for those young female engineers who are starting out, just pay attention to that point at the bottom about communication, and making sure that you really do need to communicate a lot more than you necessarily think you had to. So then, looking forward at our journey and where we are on that with our D&I strategy. Today, my operating unit has nearly 16% females in that team of 220. There's quite a difference in the ratio, whether it's in sort of office-based roles versus field and manufacturing roles. Our mission as a global business is to get to 30% by 2030. I want to get there faster, but it's absolutely clear that we have to make this an imperative for our business. The next slide then explains how we're planning that, and we've identified 5 specific areas where we want to drive active plans so that we can attract, retain and develop a high proportion of females into our technology business. So then, just shining a light on the first of those steps, the next slide explains what we're doing right now to drive a more targeted approach for recruitment. And this starts from the messaging that we're working with Collins McNicholas. But it also, if you look at this, every step in the way, we're looking to make sure that beginning with internships and the recruiting activities, the way that we're messaging regarding job adverts, and the way that we're bringing and managing applications for new roles. We're making sure that we have a fresh focus and a very gender neutral focus on that, so that when we do get to that point of making a recruiting decision, if there are two equally competent candidates, the preferred choice is absolutely the choice that will improve our gender balance. So as you see on the right, our target there is 1 in 5 for field-based and 1 in 2 for office-based, but we're actually trying to raise the bar and try and get to 50% in this team that we're expanding with in Ireland. Then the last slide just is a little bit looking forward, and I wanted to shine a light on this particular challenge that quite often we find female candidates are asking themselves, can I do this job? Am I capable of doing this job? And therefore, what are the frameworks that we need to put in place to give a safety net and a comfort factor that there will be absolutely comprehensive training programs to address those perceived gaps, as well as many of the things that Emma talked about, and having a strong internal network, the specific mentoring, one-on-one mentoring programs, and a really structured career development planning process. And as has been very much an important agenda during 2020, building stronger and stronger programs around resilience. So as a sort of final comment, I think it's important to note that with these ingredients, it will enable us to establish this environment where innovation can thrive. Okay.
Great, thank you, Michael. And again, thank you for sharing the journey that you're on within Edwards, and certainly with the new facility in Ireland and that vision to have that 30% balance there by 2030 or sooner. And as you've rightly pointed out, it's about getting that message out there early, from very early stage with internships and graduates, and right through the messaging that you're providing in first of all attracting, and then obviously developing your programs in-house for retaining that talent. So that's our 3 panelists, and I have said about the Q&A our program there, but unfortunately for some reason only some questions are coming through in comments. But look, what we can do is field any particular questions that you have for our speakers after the event, and we will be sharing out the slides and the recording, so we can actually maybe put some of those questions to our panelists before we share that out, if there's any particular questions. Now, I do know there's a lot of interest in some particular areas, so I have some questions, and actually one comment that came through, and this person just said, it's great to see 2 female engineers addressing the issue of unconscious bias against women. And this person's opinion is that women tend to have more emotional intelligence than men, which is badly needed in business today. So thank you for your comment and your observation there. My particular question to the panel, and I feel it through to each person, just conscious of time, is the role of technology in aiding a gender mix in the recruitment process, and I suppose really the future of recruitment moving forward. Are there any particular uses of technology that you may have used or ventured with, and how has that worked for you? Because I know different organisations would use different types of technology in the whole recruitment process. Emer, I might go to you on that one.
Yeah, I suppose not overly familiar with the recruitment process, Michelle, but I think I know for sure that the guys use they certainly use LinkedIn quite a bit, and they use the market insights to understand, I suppose, where the talent that we're looking for might be located, and maybe where the best place to locate a role perhaps might be. So I think really the focus around technology and the focus around, we'll say, the ads and all that go out to make sure that they're gender neutral, and to make sure that the language in them is to Michael's point about making it comfortable, I think, for women to apply for roles, because there is that element of women probably need to tick every box on a job advertisement before they will apply for it, whereas so just to make sure that our job advertisements are structured in such a way that they allow for a diverse and wide range of candidates to apply.
Great, thanks, Emer. Michela, is there anything that you might have used in-house?
Well, a bit like Emer's mentioned, the advertising, and actually looking at the imagery on the advertising is something that we've taken a good bit of care about recently. And I'm not just talking about when we're recruiting engineering people, particularly actually recruiting apprentices. We've made sure that our ads include both male and female network technicians. I suppose the other thing that is happening now is we're actually doing quite a lot of our recruitment via technology. And I don't have any statistics or information back, but one of the things that does is it does change the physical presence and the impact of physical presence, and whether somebody is small or tall, or even you don't have to walk into the room wearing high heels or whatever. And those are all very subtle things, but it'll be interesting to see after a length of time whether that actually does have an impact. That's not being particularly done for diversity reasons, it's being done for COVID reasons. It also means that the panels have to do more preparation in advance and more checking of exactly how consistently are they asking their questions from one interviewer to another. And we've definitely moved a long way in that area. But the technology itself, it's probably a case of they're just tools that are being used, and they're not being used with a particular diversity aim in mind. Okay,
and Michael, have you used anything a little bit different there?
Yes, just a couple of points, and I think this is another example where the COVID era has been a catalyst for change, and I think we've seen that a significant increase in the utilisation of social media and the power of social media networks to expand the visibility of roles, and then also doing interviews on Zoom and Teams. I've been doing many interviews which have got things moving faster and sort of getting through the pipeline of the recruiting process faster. So it's a good way of increasing the agility of the process.
That's it, and keeping the momentum going in the recruitment process, as we all know, is hugely important, and obviously the use of technology has definitely helped the speed of that process. Emer, you mentioned the workplace benefits and the fact that you go to your employees and get their feedback on what works. What would you say would be the top female focused, I suppose, or female friendly benefits that you see a take up on there in Abbvie?
I suppose it's kind of a broad range, Michelle. I suppose certainly, I mean, the base things like compensation, bonus, pension, those things being taken care of. I think health insurance as well is a big thing. What I've seen, I suppose, is some of our reward and recognition schemes as benefits are really, really connect with our employees, where they're able to, if I'm, my colleague has done something that I think is above and beyond, and I can recognize them. I think that's something that's been very, very strong for our culture. And I think a very good benefit on top of, maybe some of the more foundational ones.
Great. Okay, Michela, anything that you've seen work particularly?
I actually think that, and again, COVID's a bit of a catalyst for this. We've moved a lot of our training into facilitating more remote getting involved, so that you don't always have to take a full day to travel somewhere for various programs. A lot more webinars and short things, and that seems to be going down really well with a lot of our staff. That it's much easier to fit in your personal development courses and things like that around life. And certainly the big attractor for us as a graduate recruiter is the training and development that we guarantee. and that is a big piece for us. And I think the fact that we also appoint a mentor for all graduates when they join is something that is very attractive too. And again, that's not diversity specific. It's about making sure that everyone is given that chance to grow themselves as much as possible. And the other thing I think that's actually really working for us quite a lot is we've spent a lot of time working about what is it that we really do and what is it that we really want to be. And we have defined our 4 key values as being caring, courageous, trusted and driven. And those weren't defined with diversity in mind, but when you actually think about those words and what they mean and you apply them across all of the different streams of what we do, they actually do support diversity and attract diverse people to be passionate about them.
Brilliant. Yeah, makes everyone think about the core values in their organisations and what they mean and to the broader workforce that you employ. Michael, I'm going to pose a different question to you. Just the importance of diverse pipelining for the future. What can organisations do to reach out to talent at a very early stage? And I know different people have different opinions as to how early do you reach out, in particular to attract STEM candidates or STEM students. So just what has worked, or what are your thoughts around that?
Thanks for pointing that to me. I've got a real passion on this one because I think there's a real need to engage at every level. And we've been doing this at a primary school level in some of the communities around our factories in the UK, and bringing in and really young students to get a taste of what an engineering environment looks like. But I think it needs to be really structured. And we have a saying that year 8 is too late. So year 8 is when you're already sort of making your decisions on whether you're going to do STEM subjects or not. And then the next step has to be to aim towards school leavers and then university leavers. And I think as an industry, what we're trying to do is to make it a personal responsibility that all employees, because we all have connections into schools and we all know teachers and parents, everybody should be trying to get that message out about the exciting opportunities there are in technology businesses. So yes, I think it needs to be structured and it needs to involve all employees to take the message.
Great. Emer, thoughts on that diverse pipelining at that early stage where decisions are being made for their futures?
Yeah, I think it's really important, and to kind of echo some of Michael's points. I don't think there's too early that you can do it. I think it's to the point of your the comment that you read out. I think seeing people, seeing females, seeing whoever doing something, or sitting in a position, I think that's very, very effective for younger people and for people in secondary school or even university to see what it is that they can achieve. And I think the more we can do that, obviously we have STEM programs, we have internships, graduate programs, and we play a very active role, I suppose, locally and nationally in terms of the promoting STEM.
Great, absolutely. And Magella from ESB side.
So I'd just add to that. So yeah, Steps to Engineering is actually how I started to get really active in Engineers Ireland. And I echo what one of Michael's colleagues advised him to say: you can't communicate too much, but you have to look at how you communicate, and it's not just what you say, it's who you have saying it, what pictures you use with it, and it's all the pieces around that. So the imagery, the role models, and the passion that you can bring. And I think one of the biggest things, and we've got big pharma sort of here, people don't see engineering as a caring profession, and yet all the caring professions rely entirely on the engineering community to provide them with the tools to do what they do. And providing water in Africa is the most caring thing you can do. It's going to extend the life of so many hundreds of thousands of people, and that's what engineers do. And that's what women in particular have shown that they're interested in. They go into all the other life sciences in huge numbers, So we need to change that image of engineering to being a way to help the world be a better place and help others, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a great point, Magella, and I think it's rightly, as you've all said, you can't start too early in reaching out, and I think in this current environment where, you know, our recruitment fairs are now becoming virtual, how we become more visual and present what companies are doing from a video perspective and from imagery and all of that is going to be more and more important. And that generation, as we know, coming through, it's generation instant. Everything has to be quick as far as how they can review and look up details on different companies and different professions. So look, I'm going to finish up. I know we're just slightly over time, and I do really want to thank our panelists again for joining us, Amir McCarthy from Abbvie, Magella Hinchin from ESB, and Michael Reeve from Edwards Vacuum, and wish you all the very, very best in your organisations. I know you're doing a fantastic job in the whole area of D&I. Thank you for sharing so much with us today, and I do know we'll probably have some questions to pose to you individually, and we can send that on to you and then send out the slides and the recording to those who have registered today. So thank you for being with us. Thank you again to Engineers Ireland who collaborated with us for this particular webinar, and you know, thank you to the team behind the scenes there in Engineers Ireland, and also to Ryan and Brona from our marketing department who kept the show on the road for our practice run and also for today. So thank you to the team there, and just for everybody for joining us. As I said, we will circulate the slides and the details afterwards. We are planning a further webinar on the 12th of November, which will be an employment law update. So always room for employment law updates in any shoes that you walk in, and we will be talking about the effects on COVID, annual leave and planning for 2021, and also protected disclosures, recent updates and implications. So we'll send on some details about that event over the next 2 weeks or so, as I said, the 12th of November. So in the meantime, and on behalf of everybody in Collins McNicholas, and obviously I know I'm speaking on behalf of the panelists, just to ask everyone to stay safe. I know we're going through some challenging times across the country again, but it is important that we, you know, stay safe with our families and we follow the government guidelines, both here and in the UK, Michael, as well. And the important thing is that we follow the guidelines stringently and that we get through this and beat this virus, and obviously then be safe and well, so that we can carry out the wonderful work we're doing in the different organisations across the country. So with that, thank you for joining us all, and we look forward to catching up with everybody again, and enjoy the rest of your day and rest of your week. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.